Okay, I call to order the meeting of Mayor and Council. Thank you all for being here. If you'll rise for the invocation by Councilman Henderson.
Heavenly Father, we thank you very much for this opportunity to serve. We thank you for all things, including the breath of life. We ask that you breathe into us the knowledge and wisdom required to make strong, thoughtful decisions on behalf of the constituents of the city of Seaford. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Please remain standing for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May be seated. Okay, as a reminder, tonight we will have an executive session. Do we have any changes to tonight's agenda?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, you've all received the minutes from our last meeting. If there are no questions or comments, I'll accept the motion to receive the minutes.
Mr. Mayor. Councilman Henderson, so moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, okay, it's unanimous. Do we have any correspondence tonight?
No, Mayor, we do not.
Okay, we have a 7:05 public hearing tonight, so in respect of our time and try to be efficient, we're going to go on to new business number 1, and I will call up Director Newcomer to present.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
You have in your packet a proposal from George Miles and Buer, our engineer, to do the design and permitting work for the Western Sussex Business Campus for Phase 2. As you'll remember, we budgeted for this cost, and we do have a requirement based on our agreement with KRM to be able to be in construction of Phase 2 by March of 2023. So in order to do that, we need to go ahead and start the design and permitting work now. So you have that proposal in front of you in the amount of $123,890.
Okay, are there any questions in regards to this for the Director? If not, I will accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the letter of agreement with the firm George Miles and Buer for the Phase 2 design services for the Western Sussex Business Campus as presented.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Santos. Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor, I'll second.
Councilman McCoy seconds. Are there any questions on the motion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman Kane?
Aye.
All right, it's passed. It's
Thank you,
unanimous.
gentlemen.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go on to new business number 2, and I'll call up Director Mears to walk us through the Spring Street parking.
Yep, good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
This one's pretty easy. We only received one bid for the Spring Street parking, additional parking improvements and paving bid for ECM for the amount of $34,840.
Director, have we ever used this firm before?
Yep, they're the ones who that received our last street paving bid and also the police department.
And we're happy with them.
Yep.
Very good. Okay, are there any questions for the Director? Councilman King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know, Burley, you and I talked about this in our liaison meeting, but for those listening and here tonight, additional parking, how much space would that
There'll be 6 additional parking spots.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the Director?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman McCoy?
Just to confirm, this project was funded by Representative Short and Senator Richardson.
Correct.
A large portion of that, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. Any other questions? If not, I'll accept the motion.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Councilman King, I will make a motion to award the bids for Spring Street additional parking to the low bidder ECM Corporation in the amount of $34,840 with funding provided by the CTF funding and FY22 paving budget funds as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. Mayor, I'll second.
Councilman McCoy seconds. Are there any questions on the motion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman King?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and close our regular meeting and open up our public hearing, and I'm turning this over to Miss Debbie. File, is she on there?
Debbie, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
You guys hear her okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, they can hear you. Can you hear them?
Yes, I heard one. Yeah.
You guys are just gonna talk a little louder. Okay, you are good to go.
All right. Thank you for having us again as we present the comments that were received on the draft comprehensive plan and our recommendations that we would like for your consideration tonight before we move forward. Next slide, please. You have all seen this slide. This is that the comprehensive plan has been adopted by the municipality and will have the force of law, and no development shall be permitted except as consistent with the plan. So what I want to do is once again explain this. This is relevant to land use and strategies. Operational and specific regulations come during a normal review process through the town for adoption. Next slide, please. You're almost done with me. The project scope, we are at 90% completion with the plan presentation, the public comment, and the adoption. Next slide, please. So what I'd like to do is once again recap the outreach and the input. So Seaford has done a phenomenal job, I feel, in the outreach, the advertising, the notifications for pre-information on the plan and post-draft information. The SWOT analysis was completed internally, goal review and input in 2 surveys with an extended time frame in 2019. We're at 3 outreach events in person and then multiple public meetings between 2018 and 2021. Next slide, please. In the draft plan, we had intergovernmental comment coordination. So by state law, it's required to go Office of State Planning Coordination. They distribute it through the multiple state agencies, departments, and divisions for comments. It's required by law. We reached out to Sussex County Planning and Engineering, the Town of Blades, Town of Bridgeville, the Salisbury-Wacomico Metropolitan Planning Organizations, and the city engineer. That was directed as required by state planning. Next slide. So as far as the outreach in the draft plan, I've gone through in the past what we collected, where it was collected, how we collected it. The draft plan was released June 9th of 2021. We created comment, process, and worksheets. That really streamlined your budget for people that filled out the worksheet. We could cut and paste, and we used their information verbatim. There was an updated city website, and kudos to the staff. They were going through a conversion of website portals, and it was great the way they laid it up with every chapter. So if some person reviewing the draft just wanted to look at one specific draft chapter, they could. They didn't have to read the whole thing. And then the city, once again, offered translation assistance. So that was offered for anybody that needed to take part of it. It was posted right on the comprehensive plan sheet and offered for anybody that wanted to, once again, participate. Next slide, please. So also on the draft plan, there were several city notifications. There's a Minute with the Mayor video, like that snapshot. It's there was 2 of those that were released where the comprehensive plan soliciting public comment. The constant contact emails, which is distributed to those that fill out a subscription notice. There was 5 of those sent out during the duration. And on Facebook, there was 6 posts. On these posts, the Facebook for the City of Seaford has 3,870 followers. Not all are city residents, but that's a large area to be able to accommodate some social media updates. Next slide, please. On top of the city doing a great job sending out social media notifications, especially during COVID pandemic time frame opening back up, there was 2 groups that did a really good job that I want to acknowledge. The Blades Talks group has 937 members. The Western Sussex has 2.1 thousand members. They also posted and forwarded invitations for people to make comments on the comprehensive plan. So we appreciate others, once again, posting and asking for input. This went above and beyond just the city scope itself. Next slide, please. There was additional Facebook postings also by individuals, by council members, by planning commission staff, that we want to just acknowledge to say thank you for taking the time to take the Facebook link or social media and send it out to others. So that helps a lot. We just did plan, and we came up with several people that did their own personally or on a different page to try to solicit comments. So once again, we appreciate people going above and beyond to solicit additional comments on top of what the city's presented. Next slide. So the public comment period, ample time was given. We requested advanced written comments on July 29th. It began June 9th and it ended August 10th, which is today. That's 62 days where people had time to review the document. Not only was it 62 days, but we've told people over the past 4 months when the time frame would be, when it would be released and when to expect it. So that's a great time because by law, you're not required to do it in 62 days. You know, you could do a public hearing or written comments under a certain amount of time under the FOIA law. You extended that to 62 days, so we appreciate giving the public more time. Once again, we have the official public hearing tonight. So out of the collected comment categories that we're going to reveal tonight, we had 3 participants from the community, 1 from a business, 1 from a nonprofit organization, 1 collective comment process through the state, and 1 response from the county. So I feel that this was a good number from the state agencies to the community. As far as written comments in advance, we would like to really thank the people that took the time to read the document and took the time to give advance comments, because we can actually address all of them in tonight's meeting and let you know what recommendations we'd like to move forward at your purview. So thank you for the people that took time in advance, and it really helped us in the process, and it helped keep the budget low on the project, lower. Next slide, please. All right, so the first couple documents I'm going to go over is the state certification. So the state certification, this is the big brother of approvals. We are required to have the state sign off on the plan. They have signed off on all of the areas with the exception of 5 for certifications. Meaning we got kudos and compliments on the plan and the way the plan is written, and does it meet the intent? Does it meet the law? Yes, it does, with the exception of these 5 certification areas they'd like us to work on. So the first certification issue was, it's called SR1 on the table, and that was that we notified others. So we have that written in the draft plan. We actually will be sending a copy of the email and the comments that we received from the county. So that item has already been addressed. The state required us to notify the others to make comments on, and we have the documentation to provide that. So that will be an easy one to address. We have no problems with that at all. The second one, SR2, is about MAP 12. So MAP 12, the annexation areas, they wanted us to describe the difference between the annexation area in the 20-year plan and the annexation area non-20-year. We did not change your annexation area of the 20-year for several reasons. We didn't inform all property owners. We didn't see the need for the change at this time. And they have to be connected to the municipality boundaries to be able to extend that far. So if a large acre of land is touching the city limits now, and they want to go out into the 20-year plan, they'd be allowed to submit now. We're not hindering that. It's just estimated based on infrastructure and demand and availability that those would be 20 years out or further. It might be 5, it might be 40. Those are unknown, but we did not want to change that language in your plan. So we just added clarification to say the difference between the 20-year and the current, as it was stated in the old plan, and that at any time, any piece of property that's allowed and wants to come to the city limits, the city can entertain it for consideration and then make your decisions based on your pros and cons. So that was not a part as far as our explanation. We pulled information from your old code. It does not hinder you from going out into the 20-year area. It just has to be connected to the municipality first. And it gives you first right of refusal, which is great. You have it as a growth area in the county. Next slide, please. SR3. This was also a good recommendation where on the map 12 again was what is the mixed use interpretation. The city does not have a mixed use zoning classification. They have commercial, residential, industrial, etc. They don't have a mixed use. The city can determine if at any point after the adoption of the comprehensive plan you want to welcome a mixed-use zoning code, you can. However, at this time, anybody coming in, you could entertain a front part of a parcel being commercial, the rear part of the parcel being residential, etc. So we're anticipating some of these larger tracts of land to come in as a potential mixed use, and this clarification in the code allows you to be flexible in every project that comes in and that goes through the comprehensive land use amendment process and the public hearing process. So we just clarified that the mixed use area for the state. Once again, our SR4 comment is map 12. This was the 3 parcels of land, Chapel Branch Nature Preserve, the Nanticoke River Watershed, Foskey Tract, and the Moore Farm. They are actually out of play in the state strategies. Since the city does not have an out-of-play land use category, because we don't determine if the land is out of play, the state has determined that in the state strategies map, that we identify these as protected and preserved land. And we put in the land use section of the chapter, we talked about what that means and that it's determined by state strategies and DNRAC. So these are areas that have specific requirements on them that they may not be to be developed. They might be able to be developed with certain restrictions, but that the person that would be regulating that would be the state with the city's involvement. So we thought the best thing there would be to just call it out as protected and preserved land. So that way everybody knows that those will not, and everybody pretty much knows that they can't be developed. And next slide, please. And the final state certification issue is SR5. So there were several enclaves in map 12. They are small little pieces of land where the city surrounded it already. And the city has not had a future land use component on those. If that piece wanted to come in town, the state is saying, what land use would you want? So we took the county's land use that they currently have on it. We compared it to the city's zoning around the neighborhood and selected the comparative land use, which is commercial or residential in those areas. And we infilled the future land use map where they all now have a land use category if they were to come into town on map 12, anybody that was coming in the city limit. What I do want to tell you about map 12, and remember the comprehensive plan is adopted for a 5 to 10 year period. However, if a developer comes in at any time, which you're very familiar with, you just went through it, is a land use amendment. So you can come in and make a map amendment or a text amendment at any time, depending on the development that's being considered or what the public planning commission and the city council has wanted for the area. So an amendment can happen 1 month after you adopt your plan. It just depends on the trends and infrastructure being in place. So does anybody have any questions? I just thought I'd stop here and start again. These are the only things that we have to do to have the plan compliant with the state law. Everything after this that I'm going to go through is recommendations or comments. But these 5 are required by state law to get certification. These are the only comments we received that would be a certification issue.
Are there any questions from City Council? Debbie, we're good. Debbie?
Yes.
We're good. No questions.
Okay. So we're good to go from here on out. We have a lot of recommendations that we're considering, a lot of public comments that we'd like to consider. But if we just submitted these changes today, we would receive state certification. So the good news is Seaford did a good job with the staff. I want to commend everybody for putting together a good plan and everything that they've committed. The next thing we're going to go through is state recommendations. So at this point, the city of Seaford can say thank you, but no thanks at any time. However, we do feel that there were some good recommendations and some good comments to the state. And the way that I look at these comments is what leans one way or another. What is informational only? And I think that we should be a good neighbor and we should include informational only. What is policy driven? And that is going to be up to the city council and the public process, and I'm going to go into some of those. So we're recommending that we update the plan. They're very minor, but we update the plan with some of these recommendations. through each one of these, or I can go through the highlights, but these informational ones are pretty much the entire first page. There's nothing that is really standing out as it's going to hinder or change a direction or a policy. They're very much informational, and we are comfortable with all these changes. I don't know if you want me to go into all these. This document will be put on the website and also entered into the record as far as the presentation. Mayor, did you want me to go through every one of these items, or do you want me? I will do it with the public comments, but I didn't know if you wanted me to do it with the state recommendations.
Well, everybody has these in their packs. Does anybody here at council want her to go through every individual line item of these? Councilman Santos?
Mm-hmm.
Councilman Santos would like you to walk through each one.
Okay. So SR6, the city should include information on the bike plan. We got the information on Friday, which they're in the process of putting an RFP out. So we're just cutting and pasting a paragraph, and we're recommending to put that in. Next one is DELDOT recommends the transportation chapter of the plan be made specific to Seaford, and a little bit about what Seaford wants to do. So additional information we put in there, but the city will continue to coordinate with land developers and DELDOT on new infrastructure and connecting to existing infrastructure. Since the city does not provide transportation services, a lot of this is on DELDOT with input from the city. So we upped this section of the code to relay that the city of Seaford is always at the table with land development applications, annexation applications, and any studies or plans that would be near or in the city of Seaford. SR8 talks about freight. We took the information directly from the state website as far as freight, but I was unaware that there was a truck route. So the staff provided me with the ordinance on the truck route that was established in 2013, and we placed that information in there, so that'll meet the recommendation. SR9 recommends we delete the passenger rail section, as that none's going to exist, and they basically said it never will as long as they know. So we deleted the information as recommended by the DELDOT. If passenger rail was to ever come back again or be on the forefront again, anytime you can amend your comp plan or adopt a resolution or write a letter to DELDOT, or the federal government on your intentions. Number SR10, microtransits mentioned. It's a pilot phase. We cut this right from information from the DELDOT's website, so we updated it. It's the same thing with number SR11 and SR12 comments. Those were all information taken from the most current studies in the DELDOT website. So DELDOT asked us to update their information, and we explained to them we pulled it from their website. So we are updating it with what they provided. SR13, there was a recommendation that we should strengthen how many people are using the stops and demographic information for the rideshare program and transit ridership. This isn't a service provided by the city, and we don't have any information on surveys and data for rideshare. However, DELDOT completed a study, and they forwarded the study to us, so we have included a paragraph on their information for the service they provide. SR14, paratransit, from the city's perspective, the city does once again not provide the service. However, we actually added more information in that paragraph to enhance the need and the support for DELDOT to continue this service within the community. Next page, please. SR15, paratransit. It's the same thing. Distinguish between demand-responsive transit and paratransit. We pulled the information directly from the website. Once again, they've given us more information to be able to update the code. The city does not provide these services, but they are vital to the community, so I don't want to downplay that. SR16 talks about non-motorized transportation, limited to improve bicycle pedestrian. We actually reference the bike plan that's being completed by the Salisbury-Wacomico Metropolitan Organization and connectivity with land development projects that are identified and working with DELDOT for improvement. The next item is SR17. There was a recommendation interpretation that the city add discussions of walkability to economic development land use chapters. Instead of cut and paste the same paragraph in two other chapters, we actually added value in the need of walkability in this chapter and how it can affect economic development, environment, land use, etc. So we increased the recommendation right in that same chapter, but did not put it in 5 and 11. Recommendation SR 18, the TID should be updated to reflect that Henlopen had a TID. So once again, we went by the state's website and they gave us updated information. SR 19 had a glow ride as mentioned, and I just want to let everybody know here the glow ride was mentioned in the plan came from public comment, but a glow walk was not. So there's a Walk Wacomico's website on ideas of how to improve and encourage more bike and pedestrian programming. We put that in the section to say there can be events that will be for healthy communities such as glow walks, glow rides, etc. And there's many more events you can have besides the glow ride and glow walk, but that would be up for the organizer of such event. SR 20, the discussion of the FAST Act should be updated or perhaps deleted. It was authorized for 1 year, and they could potentially be having a new bill. So we deleted the section. It was just a section to say what the FAST bill does and what it's allowed to get funding for. Comment SR 21 is about that MAP 12 that we already addressed in the state certification about the protected preserved land. So it's a duplicate comment. Next slide, please. So SR 22, this is one I'd like to bring to your attention. The DNREC has stated that there's natural areas lie within the proposed annexation areas that are out of play to level 4. And most of them are along the river, and they put the parcels down as well as several smaller parcels. They would actually like that to be set aside as preserved. However, these are smaller parcels that are a portion of the parcel is usually within this nature or natural area rather than a whole parcel. We chose not to change this map and put documentation, expand on the chapter within this chapter to say that the land developers regarding the properties near and around preserved and protected areas, they are maintained and updated by the state agencies through state strategies. And the mapping tools are provided to identify these areas. So if Mike, Charles, Tricia, anybody was able to get an annexation or a land development application on these, we would know that they're called out in the comprehensive plan at this time, and we would look at the state strategies map to see if anybody else needs to be involved in the process. So we chose to identify these in a paragraph versus going into the maps and manually splitting parcels with a line that we're not comfortable with in our GIS data because the state maintains it. SR 23, it's the same thing. The Office of Nature Preserves would like to work with the city on future land use for preserved in effort to keep the natural areas intact. And the city will continue to work with the state agencies and land developers for development around the Nanticoke River area. So if somebody wants to develop this property and it's large enough and it goes through the plus process, the state will pick up on it and they will let them know what they can and can't do. It's also on all the state strategy maps, so land developers, attorneys, etc., all know if this property was all in play or partial out of play. And so it is regulated by the state. SR 24, the city, they wanted to change text amendment on MS4 Phase 2 tier permit. We updated that information as recommended. SR 25 comment, tax ditches. So this is the first time that the city has had tax ditch map in their comprehensive plan. And the reason we put that in there is because the maintenance areas and tax right-of-ways should be known for a developer property owner of what they can and can't do, especially the placement of sheds, accessory buildings. So they just gave us contact information on the tax ditch right-of-ways. And it's the same thing as in the next item. So they talked about recommendations for strategies for stormwater and drainage planning. So we updated this section to talk about streams, ditches, private tax trails, maintenance plans, etc. That's regulated by Sussex Conservation District or DNREC, not city, for non-city-owned property or non-city-owned infrastructure. The existing drainage parameters for future annexation should be evaluated. If those go through plus, they will be caught by the state. If not, the city now has a tool. Mike can look up and say, you have a tax ditch. You're going to have to contact the tax association, and they're going to tell you what your current right-of-way is or what your maintenance easement is. So we put that is part of the annexation process right in the comprehensive plan. I think I continue to the next page on that, which I believe. No, next page, please. So SR 27, these are very specific recommendations from DENREC, and all of the comprehensive plans that I have written, which I think I'm up to number 8 or 9 now, have been addressed the same method in response. The DENREC is recommending this new development ordinance requiring 100-foot vegetative buffer zone, not a setback from all these water bodies. They go in further to talk about tax ditches, riparian buffers, and easements. So this is a policy regulation item. This is what I want to be very clear, and this has passed through the state with everyone I've done. This is a policy regulation item with very specific recommendations. These are the only items that we're seeing that actually have numbers attached to them. So our recommendation is further research and input are recommended before consideration, as well as identifying the parcels that may be impacted by such decisions. So if you're going to put a vegetative buffer zone around any water body, I highly recommend that those get inventoried and mapped, and the property owners get contacted, and the intent or the recommendation for improvement be discussed before any ordinance adopted. These can be considered at any time. This is not a comprehensive plan item, it's a policy-driven item. So we don't feel comfortable putting these items as recommendations because we did not put them in the draft for the public to be able to review and provide comment. So this time I strongly recommend that this is a policy-regulated item that can be considered at any time by the city if they choose so. And we did put in our goals that there is buffer consideration, but we didn't put any numbers in there in the goal. SR 28, the city comprehensive plan highlights the Hearns Pond Dam Rehabilitation Project. We didn't know anything about this on our end, so this was great. We updated and included the information they provided, very specific, so we appreciate that. It's the same thing with SR 29. There's an emergency action plan in place for Hearns Pond and part of the state and the county emergency operations plan. We actually included that information as well with the link. Next slide, please. SR 30 talks about state requirements for trash and recycling and what needs to be provided and address the future and capacity needs. The city does not provide nor contracts for these services other than city-owned property. All trash and recycling services are provided by the customer's preferred contractor with no relation to the city. So by state law, those providing the services must follow the requirements. There's several municipalities that do trash collection, and they're subject to this, and we have a whole paragraph in there about the services. But there's several municipalities that are also getting out of this business because of liability, workman's comp, etc. Next item is SR 31. This is DENREC on brownfields. With a little bit of hesitancy, I did include this information in there because it says that the brownfield projects listed are in various stages of remediation. So I think calling these to somebody's attention when they go through the review process or on the land use side, they may have more to do. They may be completed and finalized. But this lets the city know we need to take this up and follow our source water protection code and look at the brownfield state's involvement. So this was state information only, and we included that in the plan as well. SR 32 is the next one. We were given a couple state references for resources for brownfield, State Historic and State Housing Authority. They will website and link, and we updated those. And then we are to the next page, please. SR 33. This is from Department of Ag, and this is the first time, which I went over with Charles, this is the first time I've ever seen these comments in a state plan. So this is new, and this is cut predominantly right out of state strategies. So they're recommending that the proposed steps for municipal government with directives to maximize preservation and longevity of agriculture in your surrounding areas. And there's several defined items in there. All of these are what the state has already considered when they adopted the state strategy map. They already determined where growth is going to happen at what level, on a statewide level. Most municipalities have level 1 and level 2 for people to be able to do development. So the city will continue to work with the state, is our comment, and new land development annexations. And they'll all be taken on a case-by-case basis. These recommendations mimic the state strategies, and the city will consider each application with careful consideration prior to granting approval for all annexations and new land development. When it comes to preservation and protection, that usually is a function that's completed by the state through DNREC or Department of Ed. I haven't seen it done through municipality other than for transfer development credit. But I've not seen a city or municipality do preservation in their own jurisdictional capacity. So we appreciate the comments, and this mimics the state strategies, and we'll continue to work, the city will continue to work with the state and developers. Next slide, please. We are to the last state recommendation, and this is transportation once again. Several of these are duplicates, which you're going to see. The trips for the transit, the pilot program, we've already seen these in previous comments. So we are, a lot of these are duplicates, and we were updated the information that we did previously. So this is, majority of these 1 through 8 are duplicate comments. So that is it on state recommendations. I feel that by the recommendations we provided, it will show the city that we've taken their recommendations and enlightened them further in the plan as informational, and we have addressed their certification. So at this time, I feel that we have a clear direction or clear recommendation for your consideration on state certification items and state recommendations. Are there any questions on the state portion before we go into the county?
Any questions on the state portion from the city council? Councilman Santos?
Thank you. It's Debbie, right?
Debbie File, Ms. File.
Debbie, thank you very much for
Yeah.
bearing with me.
Thank you.
Let's see. So as I was listening to this, a few things came to mind. For SR7, SR9, and I guess SR14, they're all dealing with transportation. So it says the plan provides a great deal of information, but relatively little of it is specific to the city. How would the city like transportation improved? I believe that the city should work on getting transportation from here to the beaches, from here to Baltimore, from here to Philly. It provides more opportunities for the constituents to be able to get higher paying jobs, and so that's SR7. SR9.
Yes, you're recommending. Can I clarify that? Are you recommending the city provide transportation to the beach?
No, that we should work, I believe, with DelDOT, right?
Yes, okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then
To
there's
identify additional employment opportunities and tourism.
SR9.
Okay.
That's it talks about how we should remove the section of passenger rail. That's I believe we should work towards it instead of putting it and just removing it, because the more connected we are to the rest of the world, the bigger cities, it's going to provide more opportunities for us, and it's going to help us put us on the map. The city of Seaford has it's in a great location as far as the beaches go in the major cities, and we should really prioritize taking advantage of that. SR4.
I heard part of that. Just relive it if I can. I need a microphone just a little closer. I'm sorry. I understand that you want to leave that in there. The DelDOT will push back maybe a little bit on that. There was a study completed along the west coast side, which was the Harrington, Seaford, Salisbury, Delmar area. And because of the, I'll just do a high level, because of the existing right-of-way, the existing conditions of the rails, passenger was not accepted for the amount of financial improvement that needed to be made. I think we could leave it in there as it is a desire to be further considered. That way, if somebody comes through with passenger rail, it can go out to the public. The city can consider working with DelDOT, working with Amtrak, whoever is doing the passenger rail, whether it's east, west, north, and south. I know that it was off the table because of the study and because of the cost, but we can leave it in that it says, we can leave the information in there the way we have it, which is we encourage, and we'll further consider if that's the case.
Okay, yeah, I believe we should leave it there. SR 14, I think, hold on, give me a second.
Paratransit.
Addressing the residents' need in this regard, there's a lot of low-income families in the city of Seaford, and having multiple cars creates more expenses for these families. More gasoline, more insurances, and they could really, a lot of these families could really use that money in other places. So that's one of the, I believe that's some of the needs in our city. We have a lot of low-income people. We got to try to take care of them.
This is specifically on paratransit for this section.
Hmm?
I can strengthen our general. I can add that language to SR7, and we can pull in the environment, that reduction of greenhouse gases, emissions. The more public transportation we can have, the more affordable it may be on residents. You want me to put that in SR7? SR14 is specifically paratransit.
I'm not really sure which one I'd go to, but I think maybe.
Okay. I can add that to SR7 with your intent.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me?
Debbie's recommending to add that to SR7 because the one you're referencing is related to paratransit.
Okay.
And my understanding of paratransit is that's really dictated by the riders that present themselves that qualify for paratransit. What you're talking about, I think, is more public transportation for low-income people, able-bodied mobile people.
Okay.
Paratransit is a little different service.
Okay, then yes.
So I think what she's suggesting is correct to address your comment.
Okay, yes. And I believe we had one more. It says trash and recycling are not addressed in the draft. I think that whenever I was running, one thing that I kept saying is I would like to get a cleaner city, and I think we could help to move in that direction is provide or work on providing a recycling center in our city, and that's it.
On that, so if the city was interested in providing, back in the day, on a city lot, they would have some recyclable bins where people can drop stuff off. And I don't know if the Seaford still does that, but they kind of pulled away from that for people not separating properly, and then the state law changed things. So if the city wants to provide receptacles, containers, or support a program, that's policy-driven at any time, where the city can do that as a policy after they research the cost, the benefit, a financial analysis on that if you'd like to. So that could be a policy change at any time. It doesn't have to go through the comp plan because we're not providing the service by state law as a service. But that could be an incentive or initiative program that you can run at any time if you choose to do so.
Okay. That's all.
Does that address that?
Any other questions from council?
I just have one, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman King?
Yep. I have a question around follow-up. I see a lot of things in this plan that talks about, the continuous or the possibility no actions required. So does your company provide anything, any feedback on, like checking in, and this is our vision, this is our plan, and these are, any timelines? And do you come back with any information to check in, say, hey, this is where we're at, this is where we should be? Things that we said we were going to complete and didn't complete. Is there a check-in phase? Do you come back to us at some point and just tell us how we're doing?
Councilman King, I think I can answer that for you, okay? So by law, and Ms. File will correct me where I state this incorrectly, but currently, and with our last comprehensive plan, the current comprehensive plan, we're required by law to report to the state annually. And what we do is we go through all the goals that are established in our comprehensive plan, and we update the state on that. So we self-monitor in that effort. We do not pay our consultant that forms the plan to monitor that or report on progress. That's basically left to staff to do, to the Office of State Planning.
Okay. So it's just an internal audit. Now, is any of that information put back out in the comprehensive plan to educate the community on where we're at or where we should be or things that we're working towards?
Yes, okay, so it depends on what the initiative is. So we'll take the recycling example that Councilman Santos brought up. As Ms. File stated, that could be a city initiative. If we want to establish one, we research the cost, we say we want to place one here, we put it in our budget. So that's an initiative we would take on. The next comprehensive plan update and report to the state would say that. We did that. We took that on, we did that. And obviously, if we created a recycling center, the information pushed to the public would be through constant contact, so we wouldn't go back and just put it in the comprehensive plan and say, there, we've notified the residents. We would do it through our normal course of communication. Does that help?
Yeah, great. Yep, thank you.
Sir.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions from council? No further
Could
questions,
I
Debbie?
live on that? Could I live on that process for just 1 minute to show the importance of it?
Sure.
The annual report is due July to the state. The state takes the information and puts it in the governor's report. What that does is that assists with funding. So it's very important when you have to. If you don't turn in your annual report, it can hinder you from getting state funding or federal funding. And Seaford gets a lot of state and federal funds. They're very good at getting grant funding or small reduced loans. So that annual report has a carrot dangled to it that you have to turn in every year, and it includes to be put in the governor's report. Those annual reports, the only thing I'd make a recommendation on is those annual reports are signed by the mayor, and they are submitted to Office of State Planning, and Office of State Planning, like I said, produces them into the governor's document, the ones that are valid. I would recommend that on the city's comprehensive website, the annual plans get posted, because it is a report card of how well you're implementing your plan. So all the staff would have to do is take that report that was signed, place it in the website of that comprehensive plan, and the planning commission and the council can look at this. The last chapter of your plan, we recommended prior to your budget for every year, the planning commission chair, the city manager, and the mayor sit down and talk about what directions should be given to the planning commission and what priorities should be given from this matrix from your comp plan. Because I guarantee you, not all of these will be done. No municipality has funding to be able to conquer all of these objectives. Priorities change, trends change, and mandates come through. So every year they can be considered during the budget process to make sure you are niching away the recommendations you can. Some may require consultant expertise. Some may be able to be done in-house. Some may be done by nonprofit organizations. So in our last chapter, we recommend an annual meeting take place prior to the state report for consideration in your budget. So that is going to be how you will be accountable for this document. And I hope that addresses that a little bit better.
Very good, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, any more?
No other questions?
We're going on to the county recommendation. So we received 6 from the county. The first one has to do with the corridor south of West Stein, shown in the draft annexation plan, is suggested to be commercial. The city has some of this as industrial. But if adopted, and until the next county comprehensive plan update, there would be a difference in the suggested land use. This happens all the time because the city and the county comprehensive plans are not on the same schedule for adoption. And the county doesn't come in other than give you a copy of the map to say, what would you like to have this as? And the city usually responds with the current code or the current plan. So there will be differences at different times, and they'll be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. If we have the future land use as commercial and a project wants to come in industrial, the city would look at this on a case-by-case basis and potentially submit an annexation or a comprehensive plan amendment. And that would be done through a public process, so people, the neighboring properties and communities will be able to have a say whether they like it or not. Right now, we've said that this area could be commercial. If it changes to industrial, once again, the city could entertain a change to an amendment that is driven by the developer. So we recommend no action needed at this time because we did not tell the property owners, we did not outreach to property owners. We left your land use map the same as previously that was in the plan. And we have no public comments about people wanting to change their land. Next one is SCR2, which has to do with that agricultural, that parcel 7. Once again, they're not on the same schedule, but we actually changed that parcel 7 and put it to out of play protected. It's the same comment we got from the state earlier for the area around the out of play area. State or Suffolk County comment 3. The first map's provided by the state of Delaware, and they actually monitor the mapping. We updated that line. Sussex County comment 4. The third line says Sussex County Planning and Zoning Department. Sussex County publishes a municipal layer on its online map. They want us to actually identify the potential annexations to be communicated to make sure their map's updated. We duplicated this information, but the city already has a policy, and the city already sends, after your annexation document is signed, the city sends it to the county and it gets recorded if there's development attached to it. If not, they change the mapping based on the city law that was adopted. So the city does a good job. We only found one error between the county and city documents, so really good job to the city staff for taking their documents and making sure they match the county who monitors the parcels. Minor small typos on SCR 5 and SRC 6, which we changed. That was it on the county's end as far as comments on your draft plan. No certification issues. That was the recommendations. Any questions on the county comments?
Any questions on the county comments from the council? There are no questions.
Okay, so once again, we've been through the state agencies, state divisions, departments, Sussex County, and now we're going to go through the remaining slides of comments received by the community and organizations, non-government. So this is called community comments. So CR1, community received, is a outdated image that we had in the plan of a cross-country trail in the Parks and Recreation section. And the person provided us a new image, and we gave them credit and included the picture. So it was a picture image that was outdated. Comment number 2, remove EEIF recipients located outside Seaford limits. The plan is supposed to be about City of Seaford. It's going to do not what the state and Denmark wants. The entire plan should remove all of the statewide fluff. So I do want to address this one. So the information identifies successful funding programs, recipients. This offsets capital land development expenses and promotes statewide and federal environmental initiatives. Some of these programs are actually in the city limits. If the state did not submit some of the supplemental program and funding and programs for recipients, they might not be in Seaford. Seaford sometimes has a match on some things. Seaford does some waivers or consideration on projects or incentives. So the state fluff is very important in here for when the city decides to go after funding, which I'll identify in the next one, on the next 2 times. It's very important to identify what the state has given to the community, the developers, or Seaford, because if the project could not go through with some offset costs, it might not be there, or they might ask more from Seaford. So for Seaford to be able to take a land developer and just provide them a resource for potential other funding offsets is really good for the community as a whole. The next one's the same thing. Take this entire paragraph out. The city residents use city electric, not DP&L. Well, some of these are located, that received some of this funding, are located near the city limits and in our growth area. So we actually do care, once again, about around the city limits because we've identified in our annexation area and in the growth areas. So once again, this offsets capital land development, and the city has actually received funding for this itself. The same thing with the next comment, electric vehicle charging station rebate. Still more fluff. The city should operate at least 2 vehicle charging stations somewhere in the town. The city of Lewis has multiple stations. Why not Seaford? We recommend no action. Lewis received partial funding from DENREC for their stations. Seaford also recently received state funds for their motorcycles, for electronic motorcycles and EVS station downtown. Plus, the proposed new Wawa is providing 7 Tesla supercharging stations. Might not be relevant to everybody, but this is huge on the statewide level of environmental impact and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And to put that as a goal in the city's plan allows the city to acquire or apply for additional funding to offset several costs for the environment. CR5, Seaford should adopt a policy, especially for city-owned lands, shall have special protection and are not to be cut if at all possible. This is once again a policy and operational maintenance. So one thing we just thought we'd throw in our 2 cents, but if the city does not want to cut all of their land, we recommend further research and input for considerations on a parcel-by-parcel basis, because some of these could encourage animals that might not be as well received for the neighboring property. So that's something that can be done at any time if the city chooses to do that with policy and operational maintenance. We just recommend that the neighboring parcels get considered in that decision. CR6, this is a adopt a regulation calling for a 100-foot buffer of delineated wetlands. If we put, like DENREC recommended the same thing, if we put a 100-foot buffer in there, and let's say we did our homework and found it to be 80 feet, you then have to go through a comprehensive plan change, which is why specific policy with types of numbers are usually not found in comprehensive plans, because there is one-off studies that need to be conducted before policies are adopted. So this one, we would evaluate the properties, maybe near the wetland areas, and promote educational benefits to the property owners, and then you should determine the appropriate buffer. So we do have this as goal number 9-1-B in the plan, as far as identifying, as far as promoting a buffer. We just did not have a number and did not have enough education information to be able to make it a policy at this time. So good comments, they're policy driven. Next page, please. The next document we received was a letter. We did not have it on the form, and there was no reference to specific pages, chapters, or paragraphs. So I have several, years of experience in addressing comments, but most of the comments noted are regulated by other government agencies, such as civil, federal, state, etc., or are administered by city as an operational task. The one that I could pull out that was very specific to the comprehensive plan, in my personal opinion, was the public participation and input comment, and it was obtained during community events. Planning Commission meetings were properly advertised by FOIA, held publicly. The presentations as well as the meeting minutes are posted on the city's website. Input was solicited upon the release of the draft plan with a prescribed process and a provided comment worksheet. All of the comments were received via email and collected by myself as the project consultant. They were reviewed for inclusion, and our company and myself came up with a recommendation that we prepared for inclusion in the city council. The majority of the information in this documentation, if you want me to read it verbatim, is about FOIA, which is a federal law, is about complaints on elections, which are held on a different level than a comprehensive land use plan. And if you want to go to the next page, I address the lack of citizen participation support, or participation comment, and then the proposed wastewater treatment project, and looks like building it potentially over capacity. That is once again up to the city of Seaford as far as capacity levels. The information is included in the comprehensive plan as far as where the city's at with the current and proposed plant. And then employee health benefits. I've never seen any of that in the comprehensive plan. That's policy again. That's actually fiduciary, financial, and third-party driven, not the comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. Seaford's electrical grid. So there was recommendations in the city about solar, any plan remedies for persistence and growing problems. We didn't have any identified in our comprehensive plan that we're aware of with any kind of electric disturbance. And if Seaford wants to, look at further solar or energy-saving methods in the future, that would be done probably through grant, loan, or aid, or investment, which might require public buy-in. So the conclusion of this is DOJ elections, which are usually not part of a comprehensive plan. And the next page, please. There was a recommendation to increase the scope to include municipal government operations and decision-making processes. So the author references the executive summary as far as providing the municipal development strategy. We have submitted the plan by state law, who signs and certifies the plan, and have only received 5 certification issues, which none of those would address any of these comments. So these, in my personal opinion, are policy, operational, or mandates that would not affect the land use part of the comprehensive plan. If there's further direction that needs to happen on this I tried to cut out the comments, but we only have one that we felt addressed the comprehensive plan by the definitions of the chapters and the intent. I'll go to the next slide, and I'll open it up at the bottom, at the end, if you want, on community comments, to see if anybody has anything. Next slide, please. The Sussex Housing Group, I submitted recommendations as well. So they asked that number 1 is that Seaford consider the comprehensive plan to be flexible. That's correct. And considerations for amendments can be done anytime. Number 2 is revision zoning to allow for increased density of multifamily developments to increase the number of attainable units for overall housing, especially market rate multifamily housing locations. Our response is no action needed. The table 4-2, the housing stock, shows that 36% of the housing stock in the city is multifamily in 2019. So over 50% of the multifamily inventory provides government-assisted or subsidized housing support programs. Additional land development applications have been submitted for review and consideration with new multifamily housing units. So there's more in the pipeline, and I think there's some consideration currently. So right now, the only thing that the comprehensive plan recommends is strongly encouraging single-family dwelling units, but it does not disincentivize or go against any other kind of residential type units. However, Seaford just wants to have a balance. I wanted to pull the numbers out to say you're 36% and rising on multifamily, which is larger than some of the other municipalities. So that's completely up to the city when a project comes in for annexation consideration, rezoning consideration, or land development. The density is shown within the zoning code. If the city wants to increase density to higher units to allow more units, that is a policy action that can be researched and further reviewed at any time, and once again would be a zoning change. So we're not putting in the level of density numbers within the comprehensive plan. So you can be able to modify those as needed as the leaders of the community. Number 3, address transportation. They advocate for that, and the analysis of the impediments. No action needed. The comment was noted. Number 4, the group suggests the revision of single-family zoning to allow for accessory dwelling units, baseball apartments, cottages, reduce parking requirements, and provide visitability in homes to make homes accessible to elderly and individuals with disabilities. I do want to dive into this one a little bit from my experience with other jurisdictions. They're called ADUs, ADU. So this is considered what we used to call grandmother flats, mother-in-law quarters, above a garage, behind a garage, a shed, those type of things. This is something that is becoming a trend. People used to have their grandparents live with them. Now they're going trend according to the APA planning services manuals. The trend is children are staying at home, grandkids are staying at home. The homes that were being developed are not accommodating the occupancy load that need to be understood. I caution people making this a policy without having restrictions, such as turning into an Airbnb or turning into rental, and how to monitor those and how to regulate those, being completed accordingly or overcrowding is not taking place. So the city can propose zoning changes at any time on this to allow them to further research them after studies but we recommend you research and get input provided, as they are not addressed in the comprehensive plan, and this would be in the residential code of the zoning code. Supports identification of opportunity areas in Seaford. So the comment was noted that we have the downtown development district area. You have all of your areas are basically identified as redevelopment or repurposing, and the large trend on that and an uptick on redevelopment. So we didn't have any comment on that, and you have several opportunity areas you're taking advantage of now. Recommends to nonprofits purchase housing in Seaford. This is also being done. They're asking for incentives such as down payment, closing costs, forgiveness, lighting fees, etc. So consideration has been granted for a variety of incentives with the city and additional program partners. Some of them are listed in Table 4-13, the housing programs. We actually list all of those out. Not all are completed by the city, several are outside, but they are reviewed by the city for consideration. And we would not list incentives currently provided nor amounts in the comprehensive plan, because those should be addressed each year in the budget to see what there's room for allowance for incentives. But there's been successful programs identified already in Seaford as a partner with nonprofits. As the Seaford consider expansion number 7, expansion of the downtown development district. The city is restricted by the state in the size based on your demographics and size population to not exceed 85 acres. And there was an expansion that was done from the original district, if everybody remembers, that was approved, and it included several additional residential properties. And there was some rezonings that took place. So new expansion of the downtown development district is encouraged for housing. I would have the group look at that new, if you've got the old one, look at the new map. And then if they have areas that they want to expand or further come in, the city would always hear land development applications. They're always under consideration. And then number 8, the housing group asked the Seaford consider the following additional issues and its goals and recommendations. So these are 3 very specific, addressing blight property in a way that benefits and does not burden communities, addressing the issue of overcrowding, and empowering tenants to approach landlords and resolve rental issues. So these items are mentioned as considered part of Goal 4-3, as well as continued support from program partners. So while going very specific of the top 10 violations for code enforcement, or the top 5, because we did not have, we didn't have asked Seaford for that information. These are part of the goals. We just not get very specific in proactive code enforcement approach, as that changed with trends as well. 1 month it could be overcrowding. Seasonally it could be tall grass. So that's a proactive code enforcement that is mentioned in Goal 4-3. Next slide, please. Bear with me. This is the last slide for comments. Are advanced. CR 9. There's no option to discuss the rate concerns for housing in the community survey, even though housing was a community concern. The Sussex Housing Group recommends housing be included on all future stakeholder surveys. The survey actually did talk about housing. It talked about the type of housing that's provided now and what they'd like to see in the future as far as multifamily, single family. But the comment is noted for future stakeholder surveys. These are normally done by housing organizations, or Sussex County actually did the last one. And I'm sure that the city would entertain support for any organization that would like to do a housing study within the city of Seaford, and they can help promote it at the city's consideration. CR 10, single-family units are more expensive to build and buy, and should not disincentivize the creation of multifamily units and solely focus on single-family units. Once again, the city doesn't disincentivize for multifamily housing units. It just encourages single-family. It does not provide incentives more for multifamily than single-family. If people are asking for incentives, waivers, consideration for reduction, those are handled on a case-by-case basis through the budget, or annually if they can extend it through the budget. And then CR 11, the Sussex Housing Group suggests additional goals that encourage market rate rental housing in key locations to support the economy, improve all housing conditions, make Seaford an attractive place to live, and increase new housing. The position on housing growth stated in the plan addresses these same items. So they're further identified in 4-1, 4-2, and 4-3. Community received comment number 12, expansion of broadband in the city. They also recommend ensuring low-income residents have access. The comments noted, and the broadband services are provided by others, but some actually have low-income assistance programs. So whoever the providers are in the area, we recommend that they contact those about any kind of incentive, support, leniency on broadband services for low income. That's a statewide initiative and countywide as well. CR 13, the map listed in the land use chapter currently only shows only current zoning with no mention of future land use plans. Actually, map 12 map 11 is a land use reference. Chapter 11, land use, references map 12. And map 12 has all the suggested land use for future growth outside the city limits. So that is included in the plan already. And then the last two comments are CR 14. The parcel north of Old Furnace Road is R2 and not R1. We had an image in the plan, a picture in the plan that shows the image of the August 2015 city zoning map. That was the last official zoning map document we referred to. We actually, and the map was updated to be parcel-based. So map 11 is the zoning map that was parcel-based. So that is correct in map 11. We, in the image, it's a 2015 document if you look at the subtitle. On CR 15, map 2, the Dolby Clear Branch should be level 1, have approved sketch plans and will develop. The map actually shows as level 2. So what we want everybody to know on this one is the GIS mapping data layer is maintained and provided by the state for this. State strategies map is maintained and provided by State of Delaware and Office of State Planning Coordination. As of yesterday's date, the online mapping layer was not updated. So this is a state task to complete. We will forward this information. This chart will be forwarded to the state to see if they can update their state strategies map. But this is not a change that we would be able to do in the comprehensive plan. That's a static document upon adoption, and it's referred to in the plan as maintained and owned by the state of Delaware. So we will take it upon ourselves to let the state know if they can update their map. It's not for a city, the city does not maintain that mapping level. That concludes the community comments. Are there any questions on comments from the community and recommendations?
Councilman King has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Is this all of the community comments that you have received? Did you go in and edit or delete? Is this everything that you have received that's listed in front of us, or did you not put everything into the comments?
This is verbatim, everything we received via email, whether it was in the prescribed worksheet or an email that was forwarded to me, we cut and pasted. As of Friday at 5 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Councilman Santos?
Yeah. I was wondering, the comprehensive plan that was put in the City of Seaford's website, is it compatible with iPads? Because whenever I go to the City of Seaford's website, I can look at the chapters and the first page only. And I've tried refreshing it several times. I had no problem with this at my home computer, but I was trying to read the comments, the last page. Maybe you can help me, Trish.
Is that a question for me? I missed part of it.
No, it's a technical question here on one iPad. Any other questions from council while we're?
On our Wi-Fi, so it's not going to populate as fast.
Okay.
Because it's a very, very large document.
Okay. I'll
But
take it
yes,
off.
it is iPad compatible.
Thank you, Trish.
Any other questions? No other questions, Debbie?
Okay, I'll proceed. Just a couple more slides. So, if the council is comfortable with our recommended changes and the noted changes to SR 7, talking about further transportation for employment, tourism, etc. SR 9 to leave in the information about the passenger trail, and SR 7 again to further elude the intent and needs of transportation provided by DELDOT. We would then be making changes to Chapter 1, very minor because we have to insert the new dates in the comments. Chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, maps 10, 11, and 12, and then we're updating all the maps to show an August date. Even though we're looking for approval in September, the document that we would send to the state would be dated this month of August. Next slide, please. So with that in mind, we have public hearing comments that can be received tonight. We once again strongly thank everybody that did it in advance so we could address it, scope it, make sure we're flying from the same budget. So our schedule is, tonight is the public hearing. We're not anticipating any surprises since we've given everybody 62 days to address comments. We update the final plan, which is roughly 2 weeks for us. We think it might be less, but our target date is to submit it to the state. We have to submit the revisions to the state for them to say we've addressed those certification issues. They would then produce a document of approval or acceptance September 21st, the latest. And we're based contingent upon receiving that letter. We're looking for a second reading of potential adoption on September 8th. And this would make you compliant with the extension from state and address the concerns. The only surprise that I received today, outside of the advanced comment request to be completed by before August 10th, was an email, and I believe Tricia, Charles, or somebody has a copy of this. And this identifies some of the same language as far as the long comment letter that I received about litigation, Delaware election laws, changing of the scope. I just briefly looked at this since it was outside of the window of advanced comments, and I do not see any warrant in the email, in my personal opinion, that would warrant a comprehensive plan change. These are all policy, federal, state, city policy, or organization decisions. But as I'm looking at the land use and at the top of my head, I don't have this to present to you because I just received it today, this afternoon. I don't know if they got a copy of that tonight or not, Charles and Tricia.
Yeah, we received a copy, but I don't think it references anything that you need to worry about in the changes to land use as you stated.
Correct. Several of these are the same that were already submitted. There's a couple of new ones in there, but they have to do with election law, litigation, and other things outside of the comprehensive land use process. Once again, we have received preliminary approval from the state contingent upon those 5 certification issues that we're addressing. So any other questions for me at this time before the public?
Any other questions from council? No, there are no other questions.
Okay. So at this time, it's up to you as far as what we're looking for. We're looking for a recommendation to move forward in the submittal to the state with the recommendations provided and noted at this time, or we can wait to see what comes out of the public comment tonight and then see if I can address those right away.
Okay, well, let's first do the public comment, and then we'll go from there, okay? Anybody here for public comment?
Yes.
If you'll come up to the mic, do we have a mic up here, and state your name for the record?
Are there parameters to this public input?
We'd like you to be, precise and to the point.
I will be precise to the point. Are there any other parameters?
There's no time limit, but again, we'd like you to be considerate of the time.
After an hour and 10 minutes of listening, I think I'll try to be considerate of the time,
Thank you.
but I think it gives me some leeway. I wanted to remind the council, mayor and council, that the state law that addresses this comprehensive plan, has traditionally been considered just essentially a land use plan, a comprehensive land use plan. But I also want to remind you that it's not limited to that. It says as contain at a minimum a municipal development strategy. Therefore, you can consider other options and other things that need to be considered if there are reasons to do so. I believe that there are reasons to do so. And specifically, I believe that given the city's record of legal faux pas, abhorrence of citizen input in public, and other negative behaviors, the current draft comprehensive plan is too narrow in scope and perspective. It can be expanded. The new comprehensive plan should be expanded to include sections of Seaford's how-to operations and decision-making processes in order to make the implementation of the plan a success. It would be legal and it's necessary. Why? You have all the information. You know that in 2014, Seaford had an incident where they paid $270,000 for a problem that the Seaford Police Department incurred. It caused me, after years of ignoring the city's operations, to question the governance and the decision-making in our city. That started it for me. But then over the last 5 years, there have been at least 5 FOI violations as adjudged by the Department of Justice. That is not normal. It's not good governance. It suggests a problem. In late 2017, Mayor and City Council approved an illegal right-to-work law. They had the information in front of them that said it was illegal, went ahead and did it anyway. That is not good government. Last year, even if Ms. Debbie doesn't think it's relevant, the city violated multiple election laws and yet denied that it ever happened, essentially. That was until the election commissioner independently adjudicated it. That is not normal good government. So if these things indicate that there's not normal good government operations, and you need good government operations to make sure your comprehensive plan works, why wouldn't you include what you need to be able to ensure that that happens? That's really what my question is. I have a stake in this because I've lived here all my life. I haven't been involved at this level all my life, but I do have a stake in it. I'd like to see the city make better decisions. I demand that the city make legal decisions in a legal manner, as you've seen over these past 5 or 6 years. So, are there any practical implications to this? I really think so. I gave you a couple of examples. I sent a letter to Ms. Debbie and to all of you. It outlines some of the problems and how you need good decision making if you're going to make good decisions about these things. I'll refer to one in particular, the wastewater treatment. Sorry.
All right.
By the way, wastewater treatment is a part of the fiscal responsibility of the city, and that's specifically mentioned in the law. So that's definitely a part of what could be included in this overall plan. Is there any contest of that? I can read the law to you if you want me to. Specifically what I'm referring to is that the city is in the midst of getting ready to spend some $28 million, not all of it our money, on wastewater treatment upgrades. Okay, good. There's a lot of good reasons to make some upgrades. The question that I have, that I wonder how it's going to be addressed if you don't have good government operations, is do we need a 3 million gallon a day upgrade? Actually, do we need an upgrade that results in a 3 million gallon a day capacity? Well, I hate to tell you, but We've been sitting on a 2 million gallon a day capacity for the past 24 years. And that's what Burley Mears told me, or told Mr. King. 1997, upgraded to 2 million gallons a day. We've been sitting on it for 24 years. Do we need to expand to 3 million gallons a day? Based on what? Look at the population growth numbers in the charts that I provided. Table 2.4, excuse me, yeah, 2-4. That's right out of your and Ms. Debbie's report to date. In 30 years, it's projected there will be approximately 30% population increase in the 4 communities that are part of the wastewater treatment consortium. 30%, pretty good number. But the city is recommending an increase in the wastewater treatment capacity of 185%. Where's the justification? Is anybody going to talk about it? Are we going to look at the facts and the numbers? Or are we going to think that we're going to somehow annex Salisbury? Because they need a lot of wastewater treatment in Salisbury. So the point is that just this example, although it involves millions of dollars, is one where we need really good government. Government that makes good decisions. Government that operates on facts, not fiction. Where would the additional wastewater treatment needs come from? If you take care of the populations of Seaford, Blades, Bridgeville, and Greenwood, where's the other million gallons a day going to be needed in the next 20 or 30 years? So again, I would say to you that even if Ms. Debbie doesn't think that that this plan is supposed to accommodate changes in the way that governance and decision-making is done in the city of Seaford, she is wrong. She is wrong because there's evidence to show that there are problems with the governance and with the decision-making, and we need it changed. This is an opportunity to do it. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? That's all the public comments, Debbie. So with that, if there are no other questions or comments
Would you
from...
like me to provide recommendations based on what we just heard?
No. Councilman McCoy.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just a point of order. To construct the motion, given the adjustments that Councilman Santos alluded to, what would be the best course of action to do that? Is it just a all-encompassing saying the recommendations will suffice for the motion?
Yeah, Councilman, I think your motion that's written there, motion to accept the recommended changes to the draft comprehensive plan, excuse me, I think that covers the recommended changes that Ms. Fell has outlined for you, and she specifically included the recommended changes that Councilman Santos suggested.
Thank you.
Councilman King.
If I heard Debbie correctly, did she say that she wanted to make some type of recommendation or statement after Mr. Cannon's comment?
She offered, yes.
I'd like to hear that.
You would like to hear it?
I'd like to hear it, yep.
Debbie, Councilman King would like to hear your recommendation to Mr. Cannon.
Okay. So based on the comments that were verbally provided tonight, I do not see any new comments that were provided outside of the written advance comments. They were reiterated with some living comments. One thing I do want to just once again educate everybody on. The state has seen our draft plan and has 5 certification issues on the map. So therefore, we are in state compliance because we have written comments with only 5 compliance issues that we've addressed in mapping. If we were to include policies, and this is throughout the state of Delaware, every comprehensive planning municipality, if you were to include policies such as specific ways you're doing elections, specific ways you're cutting grass, specific ways, the hours of the office staff. If those change, you would be required to go in front of the state and make the changes within the plan. So therefore, policies are driven from the goals in the plan. Once you've done homework and presentations and public input to make it a policy. So we have these goals, and to make the right decision on these goals, it might require professional assistance, organizations, public input, property owners, etc., before you make it a policy. The state government has stated policies, for example, policies, directives of how the town is being ran, is at the government city level. Therefore, the city can change policies and encourage, modify, add new policies at any time through the regular process required by law. As far as the wastewater data, I did want to let everybody know that there was an updated table provided from the city. As far as the plant, we made an error as far as the plant design and the projections in the existing. So we updated table 10-4 for the city wastewater capacity with the reserves allocations. So that has been updated. And once again, any time, the city can come in and make changes to the plans, the codes, the policies, etc. I do think the way that a government body is ran follows several things. It follows budget, it follows civil, federal, state laws, criminal laws, etc. Those are things that are not addressed within a comprehensive plan because they're under the umbrella of other government jurisdictions or other laws. So that is my comments as far as I do not see any changes to the comprehensive plan based on public comments received tonight verbally.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Debbie? All right, we're going to go ahead and close our public hearing and reopen our regular meeting. It's 8:31. And with that, I will accept a motion in regards to the draft comprehensive plan.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Holland, I make the motion to accept the recommended changes to the draft comprehensive plan documents and to submit the draft plan to the state for review and consideration.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Holland. Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor, I'll second.
Councilman McCoy seconds. Are there any questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Debbie, we really appreciate your work on this, and we'll look forward to hearing back from you.
Thank you, and I'll see you in September.
Okay,
Have a great night.
you too. All right, we're going to move on to new business number 3. I'm going to call up Director Mears.
Evening.
You might have to pull that mic up. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so what we have here is just a cleanup of the sewer ordinance. There's a couple things that we wanted to, a couple little typos and different things we wanted to clean up, but then also we wanted to add the definitions for, domestic sewage. You guys have all this in your packet, I believe. We wanted to change up some repeat language in the FOG section. We wanted to take out the table for local limits. So that way we can modify the table and then just refer back to it. We don't have to come back and change this document to do that because we're required to change that local limit table at least one permit cycle, but usually more than that depending on some different factors. And then also how we surcharge customers, industrial users, if they're over a particular limit in their permit. So that's really all it is. It's just a cleanup, and it's just going to make the document easier to use moving forward.
Okay, are there any questions for Director Mears? This is just a first reading, but wanted to see if there are any questions. If not, you'll bring this back to our next meeting for a final reading. Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you so much. All right, and you're up here still, correct?
Yep.
For new business number 4?
Okay, so in February of this year, the state passed a law that the municipality has to have a cross-connection control plan. And what this is commercial and industrial users in the town by code are supposed to have backflow prevention devices backflow prevention devices basically is what it says. It allows water to go one way and not the other way. So should there be a loss of pressure in our system, or, if there could be vandalism or anything like that, they can't, the water, whatever they're doing, the process they're doing in their facility can't come back into our system and pollute or contaminate our water. So there's a couple ways that we're required to implement a plan. We're required to administer a plan, which basically means that these customers have to get their devices certified every so often. So we would have to administer that plan and track it and do all that. So I was approached by 2 different companies that actually offer programs to do this for us. One, there was an actual fee and charge for, and then this other one, which is the one here tonight, National Water Specialties Company, it actually offers a program that is free to us. They administer it, they track it, and they are paid through the plumbers that are certified to certify these devices. They actually pay through that, pay this company through that. So Mr. Brian Presky, the president of the company, is here. If you would like him to go through the handout we gave you, he can provide you a little more detail information if you'd like.
Okay, are there any questions for Director Mills or the consultant who's here? Councilman King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Burley, can you just reiterate what type of businesses, retail, residential, the expectation that this device would be installed? And then also, I know Seaford, the city of Seaford currently has as far as when it comes to plumbers and plumbing, they have a very specific expectation, right? So that plumber has to have a city of Seaford license. So you can't use a plumber that does it. Even though they're all certified, you can't use a plumber unless he has that certification. But then my end question would be, is that cost implemented to the customer in order to pay for this program?
Okay, so.
That makes sense. I
Yeah, a couple different things. Yeah, I'll try to remember it all.
Yeah.
So yeah, plumbers are licensed to do plumbing, but there's a certification that they have to have, and I don't believe you have to be a certified plumber, maybe you do, to have the certification. There's a process sheet. Yeah, so anyways, so they're the ones that actually have to have the certification to actually be able to do the work on the devices. Now,
If I may.
Sure.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep,
Council.
thank you.
The requirement under Delaware Regulation 808.21 is that they be ASSE, AWWA, or AMEI certified. ASSE is the American Society of Sanitary Engineers, AWWA is American Water Works Association, AMEI is American Mechanical Engineers. If they have that certification, that's what allows them to do the testing, the install, repairs, anything else. For our program, we take the certifications, and only people that have the certifications under a law are allowed to put tests into our system. Not only that, but we also make sure that any devices that they use are calibrated each year. That way, in order to ensure that you have good, safe and clean drinking water for the public, we're not only checking the certifications, which are every 3 years, but we're also every year checking to make sure that they have the calibration on their test gauges to make sure that that's done. First part of your question was, is this, or essentially, who does this attach to? Right now, the way that Delaware has written their law, they want high hazards to be taken care of. In this backflow law, in the backflow world, we take everything as a high hazard or a low hazard. A high hazard would allow pollutants or contaminants to come into the water supply. Pollutants make the water look funny, taste funny, smell funny, but you can still drink it and not get sick. Contaminants are something that would affect the public health. Low hazards are pollutants only. High hazards are pollutant and contaminants. So when we run the program, we start with the businesses, the industrial, the commercials. We leave the residentials to the side. The only time that we'll look at a residentials if someone's running, we've run these in multiple states, if they're running a taxidermy shop out of their garage. If they have sprinkler systems in the house, because every sprinkler system now has glycol in it. Glycol is antifreeze. You don't want that backflowing into the public water supply. So as we envision this program, we're going to start with the businesses, the commercials, the industrials, and if we see any of these high hazard residentials that are out there. Second part of your question was payment. How does this happen? Delaware law essentially in 2015 adopted the IPC, the International Plumbing Code. The IPC puts the requirement on your customers to have this done, and then it places the requirement on you as the provider to make sure that they're in compliance. Regulation 808.21 follows that requirement. So the way that we make money, the way that it happens is, we don't charge you for this, we don't charge your customers for this, you don't charge your customers for this. When a tester goes out and does the test, and he puts our results into our system, he pays me $17. I make $17 essentially at a time. And that takes care of all of the mail that I put out on your behalf. It takes care of the computer program that tracks everything for you. It takes care of all the educational materials that we provide. There's nothing that we do that we charge you for. The way, again, that we make money is that when a tester does this, he puts the $17 as part of his fee, he pays us.
So let me ask you this hypothetically.
Yes, sir.
Own a business, pollutants are going into the water system and they shouldn't be. They come in, you do an evaluation, you need a backflow device service installed. What does that look like? So I would assume the customer, me, I would pay to have that
Yes, sir.
installed. So is that something you provide, state provides, the
We
board
don't
supplies?
provide it. The way that we run our business is that we track this for you to make sure that everybody gets in compliance. We leave it to customer choice. You're a pizza shop that I drove by on the way over here today. Pizza shop calls into our call center and says, okay, I got your letter, I understand I gotta get this done, who do I go to?
Right.
We tell them to go to the internet, go to the yellow pages, go to the local plumber. Find somebody local who can do that. If they can't find anybody, what we essentially tell them to do is go to our website, and I'll pull it up here. If you go to our website and you go to the state of Delaware, essentially what you'll do is you'll get a map, it's not coming up here, of the state of Delaware.
Okay.
And if you click on any county, essentially what you'll get then is a listing
Brian, she
of,
has
okay,
the magic button.
yeah.
So when does the accountability aspect come in? Like who measures that? Who holds the person accountable,
Well, what happens
timeframes?
is
Do you
this.
manage that program or does the city manage it?
We manage it all
Okay.
for you. You guys do nothing.
All right.
Essentially what we do in a quick nutshell is
Yep.
this. We take your list of customers. You have customers that you know have backflows right now. You have customers that you have no idea whether they have backflows or not. You have more with them than without them. I can tell you this right now, because this has been in the building code for years. So what happens is this, is that to get back, and I'll go back to that question, but if you go to Delaware, you essentially get the map of Delaware. You go to any state that we're working in. Click on any county, and essentially you will now get the list of every certified tester, installer, repairer in the county.
Nice.
One thing that we learned over the course of this is that we used to pull this list from the certification agencies and they came to us alphabetically. Until one day, one guy walked in and said, my name is Smith. Adolph gets all the work because they start at the top of the list. The first guy that answers the phone gets the job. Now, every time we do open it, a new name will pop to the top. But the answer to your question is this, is that if you're the pizza joint, you call up and you say, look, I gotta get this done, this is where we tell you.
Okay.
Cost to get this done for a pizza shop, they're gonna require what's known as a double check valve. Right now, a double check valve for your typical 1 inch or less pipe is $141 for the valve. Install essentially is cut pipe, put it in. We tell customers, if you're getting charged more than like $350 for this, call somebody else because you're getting ripped
Okay,
off.
good.
One last thing to show you, because this is all about safety in water. Backflow occurs in every system every day. It happened in your system today. Backflow can only occur 2 ways. If your pipe outside is at 50 pounds per square inch and the pipe in the system is 50 pounds per square inch in this building, good stasis, water will flow. If you guys turn the heat up here and it's cooking in here, you'll essentially get what's known as thermal expansion. The pressure in your pipe will go higher. Your pipe will push its water out into the system. Same situation, you have good stasis on the pipe, and now somebody drives into a fire hydrant. You get a big fire, you get a water main break, and pressure drops on your side. That's called back siphonage. Essentially, your pipe will pull every drop of water out of this building into the system. So what we've done is we track all that for you. We make sure they get into compliance. We make sure that's all done. Requirements in Delaware law say essentially that you have the right to shut people off if they don't get this done. we get to about 95% compliance, and you never have to get to that shut-off. Last thing I wanted to show you was just this, if I could. This is the hallmark of our program. At any time, in real time, you'll be able to go into your system and see the status of every valve in your system. We break it up 4 ways. Green meaning compliant, yellow meaning compliant, but within 60 days of that test date, red being non-compliant, but 60 days on the other side of it, black non-compliant, 61 days plus. We have it that way so we don't just have the yes and no question, are you in compliance or non-compliance? Because we work with your customers. If they call up and say, hey, I understand my due date is October 1st, I called the plumber, he can't get here till October 15th, no problem, we extend. And on October 14th, when they call up and he says, oh, now he's not going to get here until November 12th, no problem, we extend. You're trying to get them into compliance, and we deal with enough systems now. We do this for Artesian, we do it for Middletown, we do it for a number of systems in Delaware, we do it for Aqua, we do it for American, we do it in Texas, Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey, tons and tons of states. We know when they're gaming us. And at that point, we'll say, we don't have the authority to grant you any more exceptions, and they magically get done. Second thing that I wanted to show you with this is that we can track the valves. Double checks are your low hazards, RP are your high hazards, DCBAs are fire suppression, PVBs for irrigation. We also have the ability to go in, if you guys want, and again, at no cost, to have a pressure map for your system, to be able to find leaks and lost water and lost revenue for you. We can check your hydrants if you want, because you have to flush your hydrants, and then you guys might not have it down here, but if you have to winterize your hydrants, so that you have good records for that. For fire suppression, to make sure that the inspections on fire suppression are getting done, and also for your pressure reducing valves, pressure sustaining valves. Once you do that, what you're able to do then, and again, God forbid, you have a backflow event, because most of the time you don't know about backflow until after it occurs. So, if Fort Greeley gets a call that there's just been a water main break, essentially what he's going to be able to do is he'll be able to drive down into the system as deep as he wants to go, and I pulled up Gettysburg here, and you'll be able to know the status of every valve. So along here is Main Street in Gettysburg. That one outlier that's red. Assume he's standing next to water main break and needs to know if the public's going to be protected. He gets to go to that icon, hit it, get the address, and then what that provides him, I put the bar. It tells him everything about that location. Also gives him all the test history, the hazard information, everything else. So you'll have that in real time to know exactly what's going on. To answer your question, Councilman Santos, that's available on your cell phone, on your iPads, on your hard computers at home, wherever you need it to get it, because these things occur on Saturday nights and Sunday mornings, and you don't know. So to be able to stand there on the street and do it is great. Last thing with our program is that you'll be able to go in for the public and be able to tell all of your constituents the status of this system, again, in real time. You can go in, and here in the middle section, we're working with Delaware now, is going to be their audit form. So any number that you see there, if you click on it, you'll be able to get a good old-fashioned Excel spreadsheet of everything that's behind it. But then you'll have compliance numbers graphically if you want it this way. I can do them this way. I can do them in pie charts if you want. But you'll be able to show the public the protection that you're providing for this. Last thing that I want to tell you is we do this for free. The question that I get from every council is it's free for the first year, and then what do you charge us for years thereafter? It's always free. If you guys decide to go with us, and then 6 weeks from now you say this is nonsense, we don't want to do it, you rip up the contract, I have no recourse against you. It's just over. The state takes the position of once you essentially pen hits paper for this, you have a compliant program. So thank you for the opportunity. If you have any questions.
That was a good presentation.
Thank you much.
I learned my lesson. Stand up to be seen, speak out to be heard, sit down to be appreciated.
Amen. Amen. Well said. Okay, Councilman Henderson, you have a question?
Thank you. This may be a question more for Burley. If you get into this program and you start mapping, is that something that could be overlaid on a GIS layer?
I can answer for you, absolutely.
Okay, so when you have it on a layer, do our smart meters know if they're running backwards?
We do get alarms from some of
So
them.
they do alarm because the backflow preventer is mounted upstream or actually downstream of a meter.
Yep.
So you would potentially be able to know precisely where you have a backflow event.
So if it came up on there, I could go to our meters and actually run a report. You can run a report in our system to
Right.
see for that, look for that alarm.
Because the backflow preventer itself is not smart
Right.
yet.
Right.
We know where they are, but we don't know if they're working or not. So you could use a smart meter to detect.
Right. If it is,
If I could add something to that, what we've found is this, is as we look at the historical results along, that's Main Street in Gettysburg, along the street, we wrote an algorithm, and what we realized is that we would get historical pressures. So when you write the algorithm, essentially you graph it, you see essentially like this, it looks like a little pothole that comes back up. Where that pothole begins is a leak.
Yep.
So we've been able to identify leaks for systems immediately. A lot of times, and I saw it around here, you have a lot of high-traffic roads. You can't put listening equipment on a high-traffic road unless you're going to shut it down. So we've been able to spot for a lot of our systems, and Brother's going to get the email from us that says, hey, we think there's a leak, and we're able to pinpoint them between like 110 Main Street and 118 Main Street. Go look there. Well, you're losing water now. You got water running in there. Every time you hear that little boom, it's one of your bathrooms that's
It's a sump pump.
that's running. Yeah.
It's a sump pump.
Oh, is it?
We're okay.
You're losing revenue now.
From City Hall.
It's groundwater in the basement.
Okay,
Yeah, that's something else that we provide.
awesome. Any other questions from City Council? Councilman Santos?
Yeah, right here it says, if a cross connection exists or backflow occurs at a consumer's water system, the public water system may discontinue service to the consumer, and water service should not be restored until the deficiencies have been corrected. And in a best case scenario, you can find a plumber right away. Is that just a one-day thing, or?
Well, that would be at our discretion, but I mean, we do that now. So if we have a water leak on the service side, and typically we'll let it go, and we work with the customer, if they can't get it for a plumber for a couple of days, we'll let it go. But no, it's not like, hey, we're shutting you down today and that's it. We will communicate with the customer.
Okay. And when this happens, does it just happen, is it just one property that's affected, or is it several?
Oh, no, it would be each individual service for each property.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I'll accept the motion.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Councilman King, I will make the motion to approve the professional service agreement for cross-connection control administrative services with the National Water Specialties Companies to address cross connections in the municipal water system as presented.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman King. Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor, I'll second.
Councilman McCoy seconds. Are there any questions on the motion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman King?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
And Councilman Santos.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you so much. Appreciate all the information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, we're going to jump down real quick to old business on the municipal election support agreement. Do you want to address that?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I am unhappy to report we still do not have the municipal election support agreement with the Department of Elections. We did get a report. The city clerk did receive an email earlier in the week. It is in Sussex County. They do have it. They're reviewing it. Our suggestion on behalf of the city clerk is, if council is agreeable, let's just take this off the agenda until we have it in hand, and then we'll place it on the agenda as soon as possible rather than continue to table.
Okay, so I'll need a motion on that, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion to table under the agreement, until the agreement is received by the Department of Elections, Sussex County office.
Okay, a motion to table from Councilman McCoy. Is there a second?
I'll
Mr.
second
Mayor,
it.
I yield to Councilman Santos.
I'll second it.
Councilman Santos, second. Are there any questions on the motion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous. All right, so we'll bring that back forth. Okay, with that, I'll accept a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. We'll be back.
Train my voice to come back.